Welcome back, traders and investors. I'm flying solo. This is Kyle Bazzi here, filling in for Mr. Joel Elconin. He'll be back on Monday after a week out, but with me, and I'm sure we'll have some great chat about this, is Mr. Alan Brochstein from the 420investor.com, the main man in the 420 space in terms of being an analyst and calling it like it is. Good morning, Alan. How's it going?
Hey, Kyle. Going good. Finally Friday.
Finally, Friday, baby. We got a bull market in front of us. Now, for anyone that doesn't know or hasn't been following too closely, the MJ sector, obviously a hot topic, has been seeing some tribulation since March. But, Alan, you and I have talked about, and we had a conference in Denver back at the end of June, early July, about the second coming, the second rush. Give us a macro top-down look real quick with what's going on in the MJ sector.
Sure. So if you go back to a year ago, Kyle, our index, the Benzinga index, was at 70 at the low in early August. And so right now it's about 253, I think. So that sounds great. We had something fantastic happen early this year that also was terrible. The thing ran to 1010. So, it was up 15-fold from last summer, up 7x from the beginning of the year. So really added a dynamic to the market that's made it tough this year because the fundamentals couldn't keep up with that. So we've been in correction really since March, and it's been a lot going on. I'm really excited about a lot of things going on in the industry, but boy, it's just been brutal in the stocks, brutal. So that's kind of the top down.
Yeah, it has been brutal, and you and I have always talked about we're still in the first inning of this game long term too. So that's really important to think about. Let's talk about some other macro news going on with the sector, and tell us about Canada. What's going on?
Yeah, so Canada was one of the more interesting themes that we picked up on earlier this year, and they had a program going into effect that was going to replace a very flawed program before. The new program is called MMPR, and it's a national medical marijuana program for all of Canada. Canada has 34 million people. It's I think the same size as Colorado in terms of population. But in the United States, one of the big challenges is it's federally illegal. So we have all this dancing around. Here in Canada, now you have 13 licensed companies that can produce marijuana and sell it. And it's kind of a screwy program. You can't sell edibles. You can't sell concentrates. It's all mail order. That's the way the program works. It's just getting started. They were thrown a curveball in mid-March where the old system didn't go away. There was a Supreme Court ruling, kept it alive. This will be picked up again in February. It's probably going to go away. And even if it doesn't, the old system can't grow. Anybody that wants access to medical marijuana has to go into the new system. So there was one company, some of the listeners may have heard of it, Tweed, and they came out, it was unfortunate timing, but they came out right after that bad news that I just described. And the stock, it's been okay. In a really bad market, it's gone sideways. The first day it traded like about 250 to 4 Canadian, and the symbol's TWD on the Toronto Venture Exchange. In the United States, it trades on the gray market, TWMJF. That's a convenience ticker. I'll get to that in just a second. But the stock's been, they did a secondary, I think a little bit above 3. They just got this announcement last week about a second license approval. The stock really has been sideways, which isn't bad in this bear market. Well, this coming week, we're going to have 2 new names. Organogram, they were at our conference in June. And then as well, Bedrocan Canada. And for anybody that follows the marijuana space, the Bedrocan name is very well known. They're the supplier in the Netherlands. So I don't want to get into all the details, but it's going to be interesting. Organogram's doing a little bit better. They're going to get the OTC listing, make it easier for the U.S. Citizens to trade it in their accounts. But all 3 of them, high-quality companies, cash flow in the near future. It's a great opportunity. I think everybody should be looking at this space.
All right. I agree. I know we keep talking about this second coming, and I continue to say over the summer, especially with the thinly traded OTC stocks many times, that we're going to need the volumes back here after Labor Day. One point that I always touch on, Alan, and haven't talked to you about this in a while, we still need more companies to uplist out of the OTCs and get onto the major exchanges. Now, I have no idea if there are any in the horizon, but I mean, do you think that we still need that? Because I feel like that's where the volumes are going to be, especially with institutional money, because GWPH is really the only play up there, right?
Yeah, and that's a good point. And at the beginning of the year, it seemed a little bit more optimistic. Then the SEC went into its halting or suspending mode and really threw another monkey wrench at the market. But uh, I'm aware of a few companies that have these aspirations. Among the currently trading OTC stocks, MSIG is really the only one that I feel has a real shot at uplisting. And they talk about this. They put out monthly presentations and talk about the parameters that are necessary. There's a lot of companies talk about uplisting. Usually it's from pink to OTC, which it really disgusts me, Kyle, that we have so many of these companies, these first wave companies that are still pink. So I'm really, when it comes to Susan Komen, I'm pro pink. When it comes to stocks, I'm anti pink. So it's a big problem, these pinks. But yeah, it's a good point. I think one of the things that people are going to appreciate is we do have some companies using what's called the S1 process instead of the reverse merger. Much harder to start trading that way, but unfortunately, it's onto the OTC, not onto the Nasdaq right now.
Tony in the chat just came in and says, "Can we discuss the debt in these companies real quick?" Alan, let's touch on that.
Well, yeah. So as you know, we just started 420 funders. Part of that, I mean, there's two things going on here. First of all, rather than penny stocks, that's a pretty narrow avenue. The bigger part of the industry is private, and so 420 funders, we just started to connect these private companies with high net worth individuals to provide them direct financing. Same thing with the public companies, and we're going to be doing that. These public companies, the penny stocks, they have such a hard time raising capital, and they do with these death spiral converts and all sorts of, it's very egregious lending. You would never want to borrow under those terms, and yet that's what happens. And so we've seen some of the companies kind of improve in this process, but you want to be a lender, and I don't understand why there can't be a way for these companies to go directly to high net worth individuals and just get, just do equity deals at a discount, whatever it is that would be better than these death spiral converts. So I think, Tony, that's a good question. We have a lot of companies out there that are looking to grow. They don't have money. When you're a penny stock, it's very hard to actually raise capital.
Yeah, capital is so big, and I know in your 420 investor community, 420investor.com, and I just dropped a link in the chat for anyone that wants to go check it out. I know you talked to a lot of the CEOs. I know that a lot of the companies are connected with the community. But I kind of feel like some of the, especially since we're still so early in the sector, they kind of play by some different rules when you talk about capital financing and also just the way the stocks behave and report and everything. So that's a really important point to make. Now, moving on to another talking point, elections coming up. Alan, obviously the political sphere is so big because of the regulations here. What are you looking at and hoping for coming up?
Right. So two things. First of all, I want to see continued progress in and of itself, and I think we're going to see that. And then there's a secondary thing that these elections do tend to bring investors into the space. So this fall, the main issues that we have, I believe, are Oregon will be voting. The citizens there will hopefully approve the referendum to become the third state in the nation. I think Oregon's very important. It sits right on top of California. California is the big one. That's what the market really needs, and it could happen in 2016. And this would be a trend. So we have Washington already approved, and Colorado. Nevada is likely to go legal in 15 or 16. That's kind of the early talk there. So I think Oregon kind of wakes up people to this. Wow, California could be next idea. Alaska is also supposed to vote, will be voting, and it's also supposed to approve. So that could be the fourth state. I think equally important, the state of Florida, deep south, it could become the first in that region to adopt a real medical marijuana program. They adopted legislatively adopted a very narrow program, but this is a referendum. Unfortunately, they need 60% to get it passed, and that doesn't sound so big, but elections are usually tight, and there's a well-funded opposition, Shell Adelson, for whatever reason, go figure that one out. doesn't want marijuana in Florida. So hopefully everybody will go out and vote. I don't know anybody that should be opposing medical marijuana. I can understand some people questioning recreational. I don't, but some people do. But there's no reason to question medical marijuana in my view.
All right, moving on here. You brought up a point before we got on the air talking about crossing the green line. Can you explain to us what that means?
Right. So one of the frustrating things I just told you about Canada, how cool that is. You can actually invest in companies that grow marijuana and sell it. So that's what people really want to do. In the United States, the 250 or so companies that we track, almost none of them actually touch marijuana. We're starting to see some things like labs. Well, they kind of touch it, but they're not growing and selling it. Well, some of the companies have been talking about it for a while in the licensing process, and that's another big driver right here. We have the Nevada licenses being awarded right now. Illinois has revamped their program. Massachusetts is rolling out, but there's no public companies involved directly there. There's going to be a chance for public companies to be involved in actually holding the license, maybe even controlling the license. And so I think this is going to be good for investors. They're kind of tired of looking at companies that don't exactly, they're ancillary. They don't exactly touch marijuana. So the point I want to make today is there are a bunch of companies out there. These tend to be the canaries in the coal mine. They have the least to lose. They're pink sheet companies. They say they're touching marijuana. If the SEC, DEA, or whoever it is going to, three-letter agency is going to come down on these companies are small. They don't have a lot to lose. But I don't want to throw the tickers out there. They're too tiny. But there's one that has a dispensary in Oregon, a single dispensary. There's one that in the state of Washington, I'm not so fond of this one so far at all, but they claim to have 3 dispensaries. There's a company, I just talked to the CEO last night, claims to have a grow in Northern California. There's a company I did a long conference call with this week that's doing turnkey solutions in California to the collectives there. So you're getting really close to crossing this green line where you can tell your investors, yeah, we're actually in the marijuana business.
Interesting. I know we had a lot of issues with that early on too about what is an actual marijuana company getting
Right.
listed and stuff. So that's interesting. Now we only got about a minute left here, Alan. What are your final thoughts here? You know, heading into the latter part of the year, what do we need to see? You know, with I mean the elections. Is there a certain standout here, or are you looking at anything specific, or you say continued progress? But how do we measure continued progress?
So I think the people who are in the market right now, we have, a lot of people showed up after that 7X rally, and, they said, when are we going to get back to even? And I can't even predict that. That was just a crazy move up and unbelievable. But I'm really just looking out what's going to get more people excited about the market, what's going to attract people into it. And I think, we had the New York Times make a historic move earlier this month with that 6-part editorial. And if you didn't see that, just Google New York Times and marijuana. But I think in the fall, we're going to see a lot of conferences. It's going to be really obvious to anybody that the industry is moving forward. So I'd like to see some higher quality companies enter the space, and I think we are seeing that. We've talked about that a lot. We've had a couple webinars about these second wave companies. I think I'd like to see these elections turn out the right way. I think that'll help cement a better tone. But I have to tell you, a lot of people have noticed a seasonal. Last summer was the low for the sector. The sector exploded in late 2012 too, so that was after elections. So a little bit of this might be priced in, Kyle. That's the one thing I like to caution people about.
All right, Alan. Well, that's going to wrap it up here for today. You got some questions in the chat room if you want to pop in there and answer them
I'll do that right now. Thanks
about
a lot.